Here's how you can become a journalist in India. It is not rocket science. I didn't go to journalism school. I did write a lot as a kid, but not like fully journalism articles. They were very much essays, stories, and stuff like that. It was just something, if you're someone who's into writing, then I think journalism is a field that you can definitely resonate with. But I'm about to crush your dreams by saying it. Do not become one in India. But back to answering my first question, how to become one. Very simple. Start with internships. You just need good writing samples, and I think you're good to go. When I was in college, I used to work for my college magazine, my in-house journal. I was in English department, so of course I was an English student as well, and I used those samples to apply for a lot of internships that allowed me to crack a. I got into Femina. I got into Beat, which was also another big journalism thing in Delhi University, and that really opened doors for me within journalism. Because of that, I mean, I graduated in the peak of pandemic, so there was no placements that were happening at the time, and also journalism placements don't take place unless it's a journalism school. So if you've taken the path of a normal college, normal university, normal degree like mine, which was English honors, do not expect any media house coming for recruitment. You have to personally go email these brands. You have to go to LinkedIn, connect with the HRs way beforehand just to bag a role within these sectors. I thankfully got into NDTV Food right out of college. I graduated in I think June 21, and I started working in June 21. Touchwood, things worked out well for me. But for a lot of us who were in the media house, they didn't get their first job so easily. So they decided that they'll intern with media houses, which will later convert into roles. I've seen this for Condé Nast. I've seen this for Nat Geo Traveler, even though Nat Geo Traveler is no longer a company, a media house in India. I have seen this happen for people in those kind of magazines. I always knew I wanted to do lifestyle journalism, which is why I got into NDTV Food and not into hardcore NDTV's other side. But these kind of roles are open to people who are not in journalism school as long as you're keen on applying. And of course, knowing the right person helps. But I didn't know anybody. Nobody in my family ever went to a media house. Nobody worked for any news channel. I was the first ever to ever even say that I want to be a journalist. And that way, it's okay if you don't have connections. You just need to keep trying and applying, and something will fall into place. So that's pretty much it. My first job really underpaid me, and that's when I realized that journalism as a field in India doesn't make sense at all, because it doesn't really give you even the salary that can adjust to your cost of living. I was making, I think, 21 or something, 21K or something. I also don't remember. I was making very, very less amount in that time, even though it was work from home, so there was no commute. But this was the normal salary. So if it was a if it was a work from office situation, I would still be paid that much. So if I was to add on the commute, then I would be saving nothing essentially. But the perks were pretty good because I was in the lifestyle section. I got used to go to like food reviews. So there were times where restaurants would invite us, and I would get to eat the food and write a review about it. But since I was the junior most in my team, that opportunity trickled down to me the least. I know my editor used to go for a food review at least twice or thrice in a week versus me who would get that opportunity once a month, once in 2 months, which is extremely rare. Another great perk about this field, especially being a food journalist in India, is that you get a lot of PR packages. So you got a lot of free food, free alcohol that will just reach to you. But that will also happen when you're a little more senior journalist. Since I was just a beginner, those kind of things wouldn't reach to me because a lot of people would not know that I would be associated with the brand versus who was an editor. People would know that this XYZ is the editor of so and so company. So they would always send them the PR packages and stuff like that. So the pay is abysmally low, which is why I was very keen on switching and jumping companies, because media houses also don't give great appraisals. A 10% appraisal is supposed to be a wow in a media house, which is shocking, because 10% in a normal corporate is nothing. That's basic for you. So, especially when I got my first appraisal, I was shocked. It was barely like 2,000, 3,000 rupees more than my base salary, which pushed me into actually changing fields, because another problem in journalism is that you don't get promoted easily. Even if you're loyal to a company for 4 years, you don't get a promotion, which is why I thankfully switched within 1.5 year or almost two, where I also don't recall exactly. And this time I got into a company called Travel Plus Leisure Asia. That's a massive brand when it comes to travel. And even though the role was way more intense, mind you, these are all digital companies that I wrote for, because print media is a little tough to crack. But at the same time, if you get it, that's great. However, there are not enough print roles existing in the industry, because the industry itself is dying. Not enough magazines are being published, and even if the magazines are getting published, then senior journalists get published first than someone who's a junior. So that itself is a very high competition zone, which doesn't have enough returns. Even if you like crack through and get to write for print, the remuneration for it will not justify the kind of research you're doing, kind of work you're putting for, the amount of number of words you're writing. It doesn't justify at all. However, writing for digital is even worse, because print is still a little more respected as a profession compared to, I'm not saying digital is not respected, print is more revered. If you're writing for digital, the demands are extremely high, because digital is really competitive. You have to basically, I know media houses, they were publishing at least 20 to 40 articles a day of absolute nonsense, and I was contributing to that. I was writing, if for example, if Kareena Kapoor put an Instagram story of Apple in the morning, I would write an article about it, saying how Kareena Kapoor eats an apple in the morning, and these are 5 reasons why you should too. I would be writing absolute nonsense, because it's all about the number game and clickbait. Digital journalism really has sucked the soul out of what journalism used to be. It's all about being quick, being first, and getting the most number of clicks. The headlines do not even give the kind of information that the rest of the article is. Usually, your articles are just absolute shit. At least that's what I faced when I was doing this. Thankfully, when I was working for Travel Plus Leisure, my the quality of my articles really improved, because that's how the brand was. The brand was very conscious of the kind of words that I'm using. The brand was very conscious of the fact and the information that I was putting across. They were very accurate on those aspects, which the previous media house was not, because it was all about posting as quickly as many numbers as possible. But moving on to Travel Plus Leisure, it was a great experience from what I had before, but again, it didn't justify the kind of work I was doing. I was writing features as long as 2,000 words every day. One day, I had to give an article worth 2,000 words, which was factually correct, which was grammatically correct, obviously, which had some poetic nuance to it, which just made sense essentially, rather than just be absolute nonsense, and also have a clickbaity ish approach to it. So the numbers also met. So it was extremely intense work. This was again a work from home situation. So thankfully, any salary that I made, I was saving. But still, the salary I made didn't justify the kind of work I was doing. If I had to go to office, of course, again, the cost of living would not really be adjusted. However, in this job, there were the PR perks of PR packages, but I used to get to travel instead of food. But I didn't get to travel enough. That was my biggest issue. Even though I was writing about travel every day, it was not out of my experience. It was all completely based on secondary research. So I would sit in my room and Google about the entire world and write pieces, but I would never get to experience them. I have literally written about best places to visit in Sri Lanka without ever visiting them. And literally this year was the first time I ever got to like fly to Sri Lanka, not because of my company or my work, just because I spent the money to do it. So the problem with that kind of work was I was just writing out of research and not of real experiences. Again, that was because we had to churn out a high volume of articles so that there was enough traction on the website, so that there was enough, authenticity to the website, which is the problem with digital media, I feel, in terms of journalism. Writing as a medium has really died because of how demanding it is, how much viewership matters in those cases. And that way, I couldn't really experience and write because the amount of articles I was churning out, that meant the amount of experience I was supposed to have at the same time. It it didn't make sense, and it's not like the company was offering that. They were very much, oh, it's a secondary research job. You'll get to stay at home, so you're gonna save money, but you still have to work mad hours. There were times I was working for 12 hours, and that used to be at least once or twice a week. It was very normal because I had to get the article out no matter what. But there were times where I got to like enjoy and experience things, which is also very specific to property reviews and not actual experiences. There again, same logic of seniority. If you're senior, you get to travel more. If you're junior, it trickles down. So I used to get to travel at least once in 2 months, once in 3 months, and that used to be almost always domestic. Even if PRs would approach me with great international trips, great fam trips are familiarization trips. These are very common terms in travel journalism. Even though PRs would give me like the opportunity to fly to Hong Kong in business class, or the opportunity to go scuba diving in Maldives, all expense paid, guys. All they wanted was an article in return, but my team would refuse me because the argument would be, this came to be a paid collaboration, we can make revenue through this, so why should we give them a free article? But they don't realize that this would have been a great piece. I mean, I get it, for the marketing reasons that would make more sense, but overall I would rather read a piece about someone who literally went to Maldives and did scuba diving for 5 days versus the best places to visit in Maldives article. I just feel like that's the whole point. But that kind of problems led to a lot of frustration after a point, because again, I wasn't getting this company. I stayed a while, I think 2.5 years. I wasn't getting promoted. My increments were 10-12% types. The work hours were mad and the travel was not enough. I Even though I used to travel on my own from my own money, and I used to work from 10x places. I have worked from London, I have worked from Dubai, I have worked from Goa, I have worked from Missouri, only all out of my pocket, not because my company was funding this. I did that irrespective of it, but the company was offering zilch of these experiences. And this I only could do because I was living with my family at the time, so I didn't have to pay rent or the cost of living or feeding myself and stuff like that. If you're a journalist and you're not living with your family, if you're trying to lead an independent life, then those things kind of go out of the window for you altogether. So, does the kind of demands that the industry make justify the kind of perks and the salaries they give you? Not at all. And it's getting worse and worse each day, because now the number of articles are also competing with social media. If any media house has not integrated itself well with their social media, then they're bound to die. And I've seen this happen in few of your companies where they couldn't get with the social media and they refuse to integrate their website with their social media, and they're hell bent on the fact that no, social media has its own thing and website is its own. No, it has to be entwined. You cannot, then you can't expect your website to perform, because people are not scrolling websites, they are scrolling Instagram, they're scrolling TikTok, they're scrolling X or Twitter. And if your articles or your pieces are not there, then you will never get attraction. So that's where I realized that it's an industry which is very rigid. it refuses to evolve with times the right way, and neither does it really give you the experiences you assume you would. I was a travel writer who didn't travel. I was a food writer who was not writing about food out of experiences and who was writing absolute crap. And these kind of industries, they stand out so well in UK, in the US. Like I've seen journalists actually experience things and write, which is what led me to believe that same would happen in India. But this this platform does not exist like that. Even what's worse is that even for reviews, I have written reviews which were lies absolutely because of foundation and relation maintaining reasons, which is such which is such a juxtaposition of what the journalism stands for. It's basically about spreading the real truth information, giving authentic information out there. But there were times when I was living in absolute shit hotels and writing about how they were fabulous. There were times when I've had absolute shit meals and have written, oh, they were amazing. So do not believe anything that comes online from media houses. Those reviews are not authentic. They really don't sell the truth out there. Which is why I feel even though you watch a movie like Devil Wears Prada, you watch a movie like Ye Jawani Hai Deewani, which sell journalism to be such an aspirational field with so much hope and opportunities. The reality is just not that. You're fighting for opportunities. You're severely underpaid. You're really acting like a cog in a machine, whereas you should not be that. You don't even follow the ethics of journalism because it's all a lie eventually. And slowly you kind of lose interest in why you want to be a journalist in the first place, which is why I think I was a journalist for about 4 years, and I decided that fuck it, I cannot do this no more. I was i was really dissatisfied with my life because I didn't see that even if 4 years I have given into this career, 10 years later, I don't think I would be making enough because I saw seniors who weren't making enough, who had more work experience than me, who had better quality of journalism than me, and they were still stuck in the same place they were 5 years ago. Which is what made me realize that if I wanted a salary jump and if I wanted a better work life balance, then I should move. Which is why I got into social media. It's not any hunky dory here. It is way better for sure because social media you can't fake it. Like you can fake only so much. Yeah, you can fake things on social media, but if I'm writing if I'm like showing you a restaurant review, I will actually visit the restaurant and review it. Like those things, it's different that you know I might tweak the way I think about things, and I might say, because again the industry is such that you can't always say the truth just to maintain relations. But at least I actually do, like if I'm writing about the best places in Sri Lanka, then I'm actually going to those best places in Sri Lanka and doing a video on that. If I'm like right now, if I'm talking about Bombay fry as a dish and what's so special about it, I actually go try Bombay fry at 2-3 places and then give you guys a preview of why Bombay fry at these places work and what makes it so special. Hence, I do not think if you're thinking of becoming a journalist in 2026, reconsider it. Do not do it, especially because AI has come. So itself, AI is on high competition within our industry, and just the value of the written word has really gone down a lot in India specifically. You have masses who can't read English, masses who can read English but don't have the attention span to read English. So your readership automatically reduces every second of the day. Even if you're writing a very well written piece, the kind of appreciation you deserve for it, you will never get. Because as a community, as a society, we don't value journalism that much. That's just pretty much it. And yeah, if you want to get into the anchoring space or you want to be a video journalist, that's a separate thing altogether. I don't know about right written journalism, but at the same time, there's not a lot of authenticity left to that, especially after seeing the kind of journalists that exist. There are some who try to make sure that they're being true to journalism, but when you're part of a brand, there are a lot of loopholes. Not even loopholes. There are a lot of jumps and a lot of things you have to oversee. So you are automatically restricted to the company and the company's policies. You do get paid more, but again, there are less number of roles, so higher competition. So, for example, if there are 10 journalists who write, then there's only place for one journalist who can be a host. That's how high competition it is. So even though you can become a journalist in India and it's not that hard, I do not think you should be becoming a journalist in India right now. That's pretty much it. I hope I didn't demoralize you, and if I did, that was the whole point. Just don't be a journalist because it really sucks the soul out of you. It kills the dream out of you. I still speak to a lot of senior journalists who are in it because of their passion, but I know the salaries they're making. I know the troubles they go through. It just doesn't justify it. Again, at the same time, there's a certain amount of respect and authority that only a journalist carries and only a journalist can carry. I have gotten the most exclusive experiences in my life because of my journalist title. People straighten their collars, they stand extra tall knowing that I'm a journalist. So that the reputation of a journalist is still pretty high. It's pretty great in the industry. People will look up to you, but will you be able to survive? It's pretty much that it. Will you be like the aura, the charm you have, the respect you have, the kind of exclusive access you get. I have attended some amazing events, experiences. I have met the who's and who's of the industry because of my journalism brand tag. But that was because I was living with my parents. Now I'm living independently. I cannot afford to do what I used to do. I won't be able to pay the bills. I would be homeless. I would be starving. I would not be able to afford clothes. That's pretty much it. So unless you have rich parents, you should not do journalism. That's pretty much it.